Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, thank you so much for joining us for the panel on creating new, immersive, human-centric experiences. I'm Tara Rush. I'm the CMO at Audi of America, and we are the exclusive automotive partner at Design Miami. And when we first talked to April and her team about Design Miami, and they shared the theme this year of the Golden Age, we talked about how it was all about hope and inspiration for the future. And that was such a good fit for the Audi brand, as we are also focused on driving a progressive future. And we truly believe, I think both Design Miami and Audi have a shared vision that if we can channel all the positive optimism, creative energy, and ingenuity, we can find the solutions that will drive a better future for everyone. So we're thrilled to be here today. I hope after this talk you'll take the time to visit our Audi booth. We have a wonderful concept car, the Grand Sphere, that you really need to check out. And thankfully, Andrés here has also created an amazing digital art piece for us as well. So please take the time to go visit the booth after the talk. But with that, I'd love to jump in. We have three different speakers today with me who are joining me, all from the art and design world, but different fields within that world. So first, we have Andrés Reisinger, who's a digital artist, very famous for many pieces, and hopefully now famous for his piece today. We have Immo Redeker, who works also with us at Audi and focuses on interior design. And we have Arthur Casas, who is an architect and also the founder of his studio. So why don't we start with you, Andrés, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a digital artist, and how it all started for you?
Yeah, of course, and thank you so much. I'm Andrés Reisinger. I'm born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I'm a digital artist, and I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, using different digital softwares, 3D softwares, and many others. And I remember that I started with a very huge interest for artistic expressions. When I was a child, I've been trained as a classical composer in the Conservatory of Classical Music, where I did like almost 10 years of training. But then I jumped into design school, where I actually applied all this discipline from the classical music, from the conservatory, which is very practicing a lot in front of metronome in the bows, and everything has to be very clean, the sound and everything. So that discipline that I already had was applied into the design school, which actually was very important for my career, because if not, like creativity without discipline is very hard to find. So I think when I jumped into design school, I started to click. I started to understood that many of the resources that I was learning at design school were the same that I learned when I was learning music, classical music. But design school gave me like this crack, this kind of click, where I understood that I could do anything. I could actually invert things, multiply things, whatever I wanted, expand it or reduce them, and just like kind of a DJ or something like that, but for visual language. So that's when I actually understood that I already had a lot in my backpack, but I didn't have that kind of creative freedom to actually use all what I've learned throughout the years. And I think that was really the main point when I started to create my own career, and not just replicated or interpreting compositions from other creators in history. And one thing that is very interesting from design school I went, it was the design school in Buenos Aires. It's called FADU, and it's actually at that time was an architecture university, and most of the professors of graphic design, was what I learned, were architects. So they were actually teaching us graphic design, but from a space perspective, from a spatial perspective, not just a graphic flat to the poster or something like that, but actually using light, using reflection, using colors in space, and how they change throughout environment. So that's why my main focus in my career from that point on was trying to work with digital, because digital actually permit me to use a space without the restraints and the constraints of actual physical space, which at that time was very difficult for me, and my only resource that I had was my time and my computer. So actually I created my whole space, my whole spatial world in 3D, in digital, where I didn't have to worry about resources more than my time.
Great, thank you. And Immo, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and how you got started?
Hello from my side. I'm Immo, and I was born in Bavaria. And my way to be a professional designer was a little bit like, I was always like keen to draw all the time as a kid already. And first of all, I was just wanting to go more like in the business, like in the economics and all this stuff. But then I found out by several kind of shortcuts, maybe I should do something with art. And then I went to art school in Munich. And then I also found out I don't want to work so much with digital content, more like with just drawing. Then I wanted to first of all work as a graphic designer, and then during my social service I was just wondering maybe I want to keep more like 3D, and then I just applied for industrial design, and then I figured out also that the automotive industry is really the more like the spot where you can draw and express yourself a lot of, and that's why I just by accident applied there, and that's the reason why I stay there, and I like to draw still a lot of, and what I also like every day when I come to the studio with a team, that we always think about aesthetics, the next step, and all the holistic approach, what you also see on the show cover, what we have displaying on the booth. Yeah, and it's my destiny right now. Thanks.
Great. And Arthur, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and what you focus on?
Long time ago. Well, I came from the analogical times, so I start to work doing the drawing, and still do the drawing myself. I try to understand how to use the AutoCAD, but I failed every time that I tried. But of course, all my team, and I understand the future. The future for me is this car. This car is amazing. Congratulations, people from Audi, because for me it's like something that I envisioned when I was a child. That one day I will have a car like this, you know, or I will use a car like this. So and I have a team in each. 50 people, 50 architects working in my team, and we have different scales, different kind of approach in architecture and design. When I began to work, I began also to understand that I had to create also my furniture. It was impossible for me to express my work without doing also the furniture. So that's the reason that I work from the scale of a furniture, a cutlery, or in the landscape and real estate buildings, etc. You know, so you work in all different scales of architectural. It's how we are, and something that's very important is that I tried to understand that the project is not for me, so it's not, my work is not to express only my desire, but to make the people who will use that place, the life of these people better. So for me, this is very important. That's it. It's a humanist perspective of architecture.
Great. So you all have different backgrounds, but you all share the common goal of creating experiences. So Immo, maybe we start with you, and if you could talk a little bit about designing the Grand Sphere, and how did you keep experience in mind and, you know, top of mind as you were entering that process?
The Grand Sphere, for sure, it shows on the booth directly more or less our next design level, a lot the appearance and about the design from exterior and interior, what we want to do as a rollout also for the production line. But in the end, with this car, which is quite amazing, my point of view is that we had the possibility to use this autonomous driving feature. Yeah. Because with this kind of autonomous driving, we have totally new possibilities to reshape and redesign the interior. It's getting more like a third living space. Because if the driving mode is not everything what you're doing while you're driving a car, you're already starting to be more productive. You want to be more creative to use the space totally different. This is something what we wanted to show with this kind of concept car. For sure it's a concept car, but lots of these ideas we want to also roll out more like for the production. But therefore it was really important to show also, besides the technology, also a really nice human touch, because everything is more like centered around the human centricity, that the customer is more like in the target point right now and could also then give us answers and request what you would like to do in the future. And yeah, I think it's the main message right now for that.
And Andrés, when you're designing, how do you keep experience in mind?
Actually, for me and my work, it's usually the most important thing. To create experiences rather than just images or concepts just like that. I think this idea of changing the life of people, to inspire people to actually, if I can take one of my pieces and people can interrupt their routine, their day, their life for just a second, and I can change them just a little bit and make them to think and to raise their awareness and their conscience a little bit higher. That for me, that's everything. That's what I want to do with my work, and that's, if you ask me, like, my dream project is to inspire people with my work.
That's great. And Arthur, you had mentioned also before, Arthur, you had mentioned that your work is also about creating amazing experiences for people and creating the ability to bring good things to their lives. So can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for instance, now we are in a place, so you have some feeling about this place. We are always in a place. So I'm trying to understand a little of this metaverse world. Until this point I didn't understand exactly, because for me, to experience a place, to experience the scents of this place, to scent the wind, to scent the people, to have the energy of the people around. What I cannot do it when I'm looking at a screen exactly. Of course, we have experience when we watch a movie, but it's different. You know, it's different than walk in the street, than be with you here. And I'm sure that the architect have this power of make the life of the people better or worse. So it's something that we have to be careful when we have this power of doing the buildings, the architecture. So what I think is, as I said before, that the architecture have to make the life of the people better. That's the point, and simple like that.
Mm-hmm. So sticking with that idea of space and how it inspires you, Immo, can you talk a little bit about that when you were designing the Grand Sphere? You know, experiences, whether they're virtual, whether they're digital, whether they're in person. How do you take the idea of space and think about that for the human experience in the vehicle?
Yeah, I think, space matters for sure, and I think with this show car we also had the first time the idea that we're starting from the interior and then working from inside to outside, which also gives you a totally new aspect how the body and everything looks like. But in general, I think it's also quite important. Digitalization is quite cool, but I think we need also a kind of certain balance. What is worth to do digital and which is maybe still worth to do it more like in tactile situation, because I think everybody likes also this small precisions on the clock, on the watches and all this stuff what you just normally have around. But I think everything just virtual. I think it should be a kind of like a good balance with that. to help maybe to underline something which you maybe you can't maybe express different. But with this car, especially also if you approach it, it looks really natural and really not so digital like maybe like expected, because it's a totally automated driving machine car like this, but it still has a really calm and atmospheric appearance.
So Andres, can you tell us a little bit about, you designed this digital art piece based on the Grand Sphere. Can you tell us a little bit about your process and what inspired you and how that piece came to life?
Yes, of course. For this piece in particular, I got to see and to experience the Audi Grand Sphere from the very beginning, and the first thing that came to my mind was the moods and the real experience that I felt when I been there, and when I seen and when I've been inside of it, and this idea of actually having all of these changes and just not being the same. It's not a car. It's just like a moving space. So it's like an interior in motion. So it's a way of moving through landscapes, moving through spaces, through this world, in a different environment. So this kind of womb that the guys created, that is amazing. It feels really like it's a space you want to be there. I don't know if you are able to see it in it, but it's very very special how you feel in it. The materials are totally different from any kind of car that are in the industry. All the textiles, the wood really feels like an interior, like thought as an architecture space more than as a car. And that was actually my main inspiration for this artwork. The idea of creating and expressing those experiences from my point of view, and that was the main idea that I communicate to the Audi team, that I didn't want to show the car, because I thought that was not needed, because the car is all about experiences. It's not about just the object. So let's enhance and embrace all of that experiences that the car is creating, and expressing them in a totally different way, from a different perspective, in order to inspire people.
Great. And Immo, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what Andrés was saying, that this vehicle, because it's automated, gives you the chance to have an additional living space, an additional space for experiences. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, exactly. I think like Andreas mentioned already, the space is also very important, because if you sit in the car, you have a totally new experience and totally new appearance about the interior, because everything is a little bit more like around the driving feature. But if you sit there, you get really this additional more space you maybe would more expect from an apartment car like this. And for sure, if you're thinking about different kind of use cases, like for example relaxing, you need some more leg room for that, which normally you don't have on a car, because everything is more like upright in the car line, that you have the best ergonomics. But in this car, it gives you totally new possibilities and new approach for us to think about how it could look like. And what I also like, especially with your work, what you're showing also on the booth, is this atmosphere, how you did your interpretation about it, which also underlines a little bit what we also thought about it, that we want to have a little bit this human touch on the car, that it doesn't look too much man-made car like this, or too artificial. It needs a little bit this kind of warm feeling, as atmospheric, with these kind of nice soft volumes, but also with these especially light sources. This is something I think which also helps a little bit to think about that maybe automated driving is the future, because I think some of the customers would agree a little bit, maybe not really 100% if it's the right thing, but I think it needs a little bit the time to also feel a little bit more like relaxed in this kind of device.
And Arthur, in your work, how do you blend real life and digital? Does that come into play in your designs and in your work?
Try to understand your question. You know what? It's funny because when you used to present to the client, nowadays it's very easy to show to the client exactly how the house, how the space will be, because we have incredible tools to do renderings, etc. So sometimes when you put a project ready and a project that we imagine, it's the same. It's the same. It's like the photo is the same, the drawing. So it's easy. But at the same time, what we cannot show in the drawings are the relationship between the people. Sometimes I put all the family together with me when they want to do a house, for instance, and try to understand what they need, because sometimes a family have a problems between the relationship between the members of this family, and it can be, or if it's not be solved, but it can be made better if you do a good project for this family, to have sometimes place to where they can meet each other more, you know. It's something that, of course, you cannot see when you do a rendering, the best we can do in the rendering. So I think that, yes, we go much further with these tools again, you know, like we have nowadays, but still we need this experience of the space when you are in a space.
So one of the things I read about you that I found really fascinating is that you don't have just one style, that you really move from project to project with a completely new vision. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, you know, because if I do a house in a specific spot, it's different than I cannot do. I remember when I did my house on the beach. It was very fun. It was like almost 20 years ago, and people and it was cover of many magazines. It's a small house actually. It's only 400 square meters. It's not like that big house, but it's inside the rainforest, in a place that I used to go every weekend to work actually. And people that saw in Russia or in Australia or in Nairobi, they want to do the same house in different spots. They say, oh, I want to do, but I want to not to you to do a project, but to reproduce this very house in this spot. I say, it's impossible, you know. It's like there is nothing. It's different environment, different. So it will be very funny, you know. Imagine like, where is Wally? You know, remember that joke? So the house is here. But you know, it's. But at the same time, at that time, I say they have nothing to do. So the place where this house will be is very important. The question of climate question is very important. The family, the culture is very important. And so, one of the questions that I always do for my clients are, which materials make you more comfortable? The people that love stone, the people that hate stone. So it makes the project be completely different. So at the same time, I'm trying. Sometimes I see, well, it's the same Arthur who have designed the boat projects, because they're very different. I agree with you. You know, you actually were the first person that told me this thing.
And Andrés, how about for you? Do you feel like you have some similarities in your approach, or every project you take on with a new vision? How does it work in your creative process?
Yeah, yes, of course. I think that's main key for everything we do in design. I mean, it's a design thinking. It's a way of approaching projects. You can't be so stubborn to put something that was designed for one place in another part of the world. It's just like migrating pigeons from Europe to Latin America. It's like, yeah, you can do it, but that will not work the same because pigeons are not locally. So it's actually the same. It's instead of just looking something at a reference or Pinterest or whatever and just applying that into a totally different context that was not actually meant for that. It's actually observe and interpretate the environment, the context where you are creating for the people you are creating, and actually from that is everything growing. It's like the ingredients to create a food plate instead of just putting the same food everywhere in the world. You use local ingredients, right? It's like it's just all the way around.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, thinking of it that way. Immo, when it comes to designing the interior of Audis, obviously you want to be some consistency of the Audi brand, but each vehicle then has some new inspiration. So can you talk about that a little bit and how the Grand Sphere was really an inside-out approach to the design?
Yeah, exactly. The inside out is, like I mentioned, it's something which only works if you're thinking about this autonomous driving, because then you can think about it that more like the space what you're designing from beginning is maybe different, like maybe from the exterior would think about it. But I think what we would like to achieve more and more is really this kind of material-driven design, that you have maybe less pieces, but really honest, big bold surface, to have this feeling that you have really a kind of holistic design approach, that you really see maybe the interior starts from the back to the front. It's not like the first seat row, B pillars, and the second seat row. It should be one big shape, which gives a really nice, clean and quiet look in the end.
And Artur, do you also have kind of an inside-out approach, or does that take different shapes each time you design a new project?
It change. Sometimes it change. Yeah. My main relationship is between the landscape and inside. For me, it's very important to bring the landscape to inside. This is something that comes a lot from our architecture, the modernist architecture in Brazil, and also the modernist architecture in California, for instance. Because for us, the bringing the environment, the landscape is very important. So sometimes it's not possible because the landscape doesn't exist. Like São Paulo, for instance, it's a very hard city. So sometimes you have to create your own landscape to bring to put inside. But it's very important for me now, for me always, to bring the greenery inside the projects. You know what I mean? So it's I think that the green makes people happier, and so I think that's important to make the people happier. I was just thinking now when you guys are talking about, because our approach of a project, of a car, for instance, is completely different than an architecture, because a car have to be sold everywhere in the world, and the architecture have to have different approaches for each place in the world. So it's funny because it's very different.
These last couple of years, we've all been in such an interesting place, experiencing the pandemic and having the world change so much and moving to virtual in so many instances. Artur, maybe I'll start with you. Has that shaped or changed how you design or think about projects?
Sorry. Yeah, it's more or less, to tell you the truth, more or less than the more, because I think that only make people more free to work whatever they want. Of course, and we understood that people, especially young people, that our team are people from 25 to 35 years, more or less, they want to be together most of the time. They don't want to be in their house, using their pajamas, and then they work. Not every day, but they are free to do it if they want. And they don't want most of the time. So, it only make for us clear that the best thing to work nowadays is to have freedom.
And Andres, has these last few years, has it changed anything for you in your approach or design or what you want to do in the future?
I think it's pretty similar than Arthur said. My approach has been always, I mean, maybe because of in my industry is very young. All the digital industry is very young, and design industry, digital design, and all of that. And I think we have always had this freedom to actually create from whatever we wanted, and not just to be in the agency or in the studio or whatever. And that was something that I really applied to my team from the very beginning. Actually, they want to go to the studio because they actually want to bounce with people physically, and that to have that other approach, and the ideas like came up in a different way. But sometimes you just don't want. It's just that you want to have a more quiet moment where you are just writing or observing others' creations. So you don't want to be in a more noisy place where you actually interact with people. So I think it's in my industry, or in my case, was always like that, and this event didn't change anything in that sense.
And maybe a question for all of you about where you find inspiration in your life, outside in the world. How do you get inspired?
I think it's different for every creator, and also takes a long time to actually find out what is your inspiration and where to find it. But in my case, I got it from two different scenes, and it's one, it's observing the world around him. Maybe it's just this bench and the wood and how the reflection got it, and the chips in the painting and everything. And the other thing is working, just spending time doing the thing. That's where most of the things happen.
And Immo, how about for you?
Yeah, especially with this new kind of era of the show car, what we are showing here, we are getting more and more inspired by architecture, by industrial design, product design, to get also this feeling. But I personally sometimes also by accident see something and just morph it in the end, and I think maybe it's something new we can maybe reinterpret. But in the end, nature is always giving you lots of examples, which could be maybe really important to transfer into a kind of static device. Yeah, it's more like my daily situation or my daily work ethic. I'm creating new design.
And Arthur, how about you?
About inspiration. I'm sure that the main skill of an architect, of somebody that work in my universe, is to be very observator, to observe a lot of things, to understand, to earn a space and observe everything. But I'm very frank with you. To be very frank, I think that my inspiration comes from the necessity of doing a project. I cannot. It's not something that make me. Today I want to create a no. I have to have the client first, paying me first, second, and then I do the project and I will do my best. But. Otherwise, no inspiration.
So can you tell us about maybe one of your current projects or something you've worked on recently that you're really proud of to bring into the world?
It's horrible to tell this, but I'm very proud of the next project. And everything that I have done, I always see problems. I say that's not perfect enough. I only see problems, but the next will be fantastic.
And how about you, Immo, with the Grand Sphere? Tell us a little bit more about that project and your role in that project and how it came to life.
Yeah, this project, because you talked about before, about the pandemic, it was the first time we did a project, really everybody at home, which is normally not we haven't done it before, to be honest, because normally if you do a show car, you have a really intensive team. You know, you're sitting maybe in a small room, a party of 6 people, and spending there maybe 11 months together and have really intensive work method. And this time it was totally different because you work everybody remote from home. And I think what is very important for us as a designer, because for sure there's invention but also styling, we always need the models, because the naked eye will never will ever. It's the best reference. And for sure we are building lots of models. We have 3D, virtual reality, but I think the best thing is still go to the studio, have a chat with some colleagues together, and see the real model, how it will be looking for the reality in the end. It's something which is very important, and I think this was for us really a big challenge for this car, but for sure it worked out. It's really beautiful. But I think long-term wise, as a designer, especially about styling, I think it's always important to be together, sharing things together, physical-wise, to be on the same page with everything.
And obviously for Audi, inclusion and sustainability are important themes that we carry through all of our projects, all of our designs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's true. I think especially also for our show car, we have, for example, lots of recycled materials in the floor. Some of the coating of the wood is pretty sustainable, and this is something what we anyway have already in the car production, especially for the current A3. We have also lots of plastic bottles in the trim line, and this is something especially also about carryover parts, everything, how long a car lasts, and if you're designing this product, it also then fits to another design. This is something we are daily more or less working on, that everything has a kind of long-lasting story.
And at Audi, we're so focused on the future and driving progress. Andreas, when you think about the future, what excites you the most? What's your vision for what could be in the future with your work and in the world?
I think that's, there's a common interest in using a digital and like the metaverse as an escape, and I rather don't see it like that. I think it's more like digital is more like an expansion of experiences in our reality, more than just escape or escapism to avoid our context, our bodies. I mean, we are not going to be bodiless anytime soon. So my idea, at least very personal, is that digital is an expansion of experiences and not at all a replacement of the experiences we have in our bodies. That's something that that will be impossible to replace, and who wants to?
And Immo, what excites you about the future of Audi design? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I think we will, like Andrés also mentioned, I think digitalization is very important to make things maybe in the process very fast or maybe more efficient, but I think you will always have a kind of balance between the haptic or the geometry and also the real product, but also underlining some digital content. I could imagine that maybe the digitalization is maybe a kind of background service in the end, which fulfills maybe the geometry and all the stuff we would like to need for use cases. But for sure, especially also in the show car, we are also playing with these kind of digital T-talks, that you have a new technique how to project information onto a kind of nice veneer of wood instead of using some screens and something like this. And these are more like nice benefits, how we can maybe find a nice interpretation and harmony between tactile, haptic, and also virtual reality and digitalization.
And Artur, in architecture, what do you think is next? What are going to be the asks from some of your clients in the future?
If I had this answer, it would be incredible. I have no idea, actually, about the future. I think it's what changed a lot to the architecture is the technology, for sure, and the technology is the technology. So we have to wait a little. The two guys can tell much more about the future than me, but I really think that sometimes, you know, people in my field, for instance, in architecture, people want to vivenciar, to live the experience of things that was the place, a little in the place of the past, of not in the past, but in the memories, you know. So it's very difficult in architecture. You talk about the future if you have to use the memories also in this to do this dish. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult. Sorry.
So before we close out, I just want to also ask if there's anything else any of you would like to share, perspective on how you viewed the Design Miami, things that have stood out to you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about what you said about the projector in the panel instead of having a screen, and that's something I have been thinking about like for some months now. That this idea that light being projected into surface or into a textile, it reminds me a lot of the sun, like being projected and casted into curtains, into fabric, which actually is much more organic and natural and makes much more sense than just the having a source of light that it's a full screen. So that's why I think I like the most this idea of having a full projection, that it's actually material, it's not just LEDs, but it's just wood, and you are seeing the reflection of light in wood, which is something that happens out in the world everywhere.
Yeah, well said. I think it's something what you also wanted to achieve, because I think if you have a screen there and you switch it off, I think you switch it on again, because it makes no sense if you have just a black material in front of you. And I think with the veneer you still have another idea about attractive surface. But what I like here on the Design Miami, because it's a non-automotive fair, to be honest, and I like all these booths here, because here you get additional kind of inspiration especially from the furniture, from some mid-century furniture products and all this stuff. Especially as an interior designer, it's beautiful here to be here.
Yeah, yesterday we launched the new book that we have done with Risoli at Espaço, and also the new furniture we designed for US. And so it was a very interesting day, and also an incredible pianist friend of us played Bossa Nova, talk about the history of Bossa Nova, that was very nice, Marcelo Bratic. So that actually was the grandson of an incredible modernist architect in Brazil. He's here. Marcelo, I just talk about you and your grandfather and it was a very nice night that we have in Espaço yesterday. Unfortunately, you were not here. We were not here there, but that's the main reason that we are here, to be with our friends.
And maybe one last question for you, Andrés. When you look at the work that you created for the Grand Sphere, how do you think it reflects that kind of hope and optimism for the future?
I really like this idea that I've been using a lot in my work, this connection from the inside outside, that I think we have talked a lot about it. And I've been pushing this idea of having a mirror that it's reflecting the outside in an interior, which actually is totally impossible. And I think that's a very beautiful metaphor of how I envision the future.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to everyone in the audience. I hope you all get a chance to visit the Audi booth and take a look at the great, amazing digital artwork by Andrés. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.